Good morning students. Today is lecture 13 of module 5. So, in this we will discuss the transport through porous membranes like transport of gases, Knudsen flow, then we will discuss a model which is also known as friction model, then non-porous membrane transport, and we will also discuss the solution diffusion model. As you know, the most important property of membrane is their ability to control the rate of permeation of the different species. Now, permeation can be explained by two mechanisms. So, one is that if we talk about the porous membrane, which is essentially the microfiltration and ultrafiltration membranes. So, in which the separation is occurring through the pores. And another category is the non-porous membranes. So, or also you can call them dense membranes. So, here what is happening? Now, the permeant which is supposed to be transported through the membrane is first dissolves itself in the membrane material, then diffuses through the membrane to the permeate side due to the concentration gradient. So, essentially we have clubbed this transport into two different categories. We will discuss the transport of porous membrane, then we will discuss the transport of the non-porous membrane. So, porous membranes are used in microfiltration and ultrafiltration processes. These membranes consist of a polymeric matrix containing pores within the range of 2 nanometer to 10 micrometer. So, these things we have discussed. However, since in this particular lectures also I am just trying to give a little idea about what are the porous and non-porous membranes. We will discuss little briefly, very briefly, so that you do not have to go back and see the earlier videos or the lectures. So, here since we talk about pores, so as you know that we have discussed many times the different types of pore geometries are possible. Okay. So, such structures exist over the whole membrane thickness in microfiltration membrane. Now, in microfiltration membrane the resistance is determined by the total membrane thickness. So, as I told you in the last class also, the thickness of the membrane material plays a very important role, and more the thickness, the more will be the resistance to the transport or the flow. So, you can see there are two different types of pore geometries that I have shown here. You can see these are mostly cylindrical types of pores. Okay. And which are actually in real life practices are non-existent, or they are not present in that type in exactly something like this. Okay. So, this is just trying to make you understand that how pores may be, and then of course, we can have some pores like this also, okay, distributed uniformly or heterogeneously also, right. This is about microfiltration, and ultrafiltration membrane is usually having an asymmetric structure, though it is porous, but it is asymmetric. So, where the porous top layer mainly determines the resistance to flow. So, both the layers are porous in ultrafiltration membrane. Now, the transport length is only the order of 1 micron or less. So, as minimum the thickness of the top layer, okay, the resistance to transport will be much lower. Now, the existence of these different pore geometries also implies that different models have been developed to describe transport adequately. So, due to the different types of pore geometries, pore sizes, and those are actually available in real life practices, that is why different models were also been developed. Now, these transport models may be helpful in determining which structural parameters are important and how membrane performance can be improved by varying some specific parameters. The simplest representation is one in which the membrane is considered as a number of parallel cylindrical pores. This we have already known. So, if you remember, recall the Hagen-Poiseuille equation. This is the equation in which the it is assumed that the pore sizes, okay, they are parallel cylindrical pores, right. Perpendicular or oblique to the membrane surface. Now, the length of each cylindrical pores is equal or almost equal to the membrane thickness, and the volume flux through these pores may be described by this Hagen-Poiseuille equation. If you assume that all pores have the same radius, then we can write this equation as J equals to, J is the volumetric flux, okay, epsilon r square, then 8, this is viscosity, tau, and delta p by delta x. Okay. So, delta p by delta x is the actually the gradient, and this indicates that solvent flux is proportional to the driving force, that is the pressure difference across the membrane thickness delta x and inversely proportional to the viscosity. the quantity epsilon is the surface porosity, which is also called the fractional pore area. Now, that epsilon is equal to the ratio of the pore area to the membrane area multiplied by the number of pores. So, we can calculate epsilon from using this equation N p pi r square by a m. So, N p is the number of pores that is present on the membrane surface, okay. Pi r square is the area of the pore, and a m is the area of the membrane, and tau is actually the pore tortuosity. For cylindrical perpendicular pores, tortuosity is equal to 1. The Hagen-Poiseuille equation clearly shows the effect of membrane structure on transport. So, a physical meaning can be given to hydraulic permeability in terms of porosity, pore radius, pore tortuosity and viscosity, okay. So that the phenomenological black box equation may be related to a physical model, because you remember last class we discussed that about the phenomenological equations, the proportionality constant A and all. So, you know the phenomenological equation are they are actually black box equation, they are not telling anything about how the transport is occurring, right. So, what they are telling is that how fast the transport, the proportionality constant A tells us that how fast a permeate will permeate through the membrane, it is not telling how it is happening, right. So, the mechanism is not being told. So, unless until we take into account the pore size, pore geometries, then the tortuosity, or which will give us the pore, this one the shape and size shapes of the pores, then membrane material and viscosity, so many parameters are there. So, then we cannot understand what is the actual mechanism when a particular permeate is passing through the or transporting through the membrane. So, though the Hagen-Poiseuille equation gives a good description of the transport through the membrane consisting of a number of parallel poles, but please again remember that this is an assumption, mere assumption, which is not true in real practice. But see, when you define, derive or develop certain models or equations, then you need to have some assumptions. So, based on that assumptions only we are proceeding. Either we can have a Hagen-Poiseuille equation or we can go for a Kozny-Kerman equations. So, still they are far better than the your phenomenological equations, because they do not absolutely tell us anything about how the transport actually is happening. So, system of closed packed spheres which can be found in organic and inorganic sinter membranes, usually in ceramic membranes, in phase inversion membranes with a nodular top layer approach. So, they, if you take assume that the pores are actually closed interspaces between the closely packed spheres, that is the assumption of the Kozny-Kerman equation, right. So, here epsilon is the volume fraction of the pore, S is the internal surface area, and K is the Kozny-Kerman constant. Now, K again depends on the shape of the pores and the tortuosity. Now, phase inversion membranes frequently show a sponge like structure. The volume flux through these membranes are described either by Hagen-Poiseuille or the Kozny-Kerman relation, although morphology is completely different. When an asymmetric membrane or composite membrane is used in gas separation, the gas molecules will tend to diffuse from the high pressure to the low pressure side, right. So, the various mechanisms can be distinguished depending on the structure of the asymmetric membrane. Now, please look at this particular membrane structure. You can see there is a top layer here, okay, that is followed by another sublayer of a relatively big size or large, you can say, okay, which is consisting of a narrow pores. Then there is another one which is this one, okay, which is containing wide pores. So, so that is the thickness will be more. So, this is how the asymmetric membranes are prepared. So, we can many times it happens that we have only the top layer and this layer, we do not have an intermediate narrow pore layer. Now, if you closely look at how the transport is happening, if you see the first top layer, okay, so the bulk diffusion occurs in that, and it is very thin as possible, so that the thickness of the membrane plays a very or provides a very less resistance to the flow. Now, when you come down next about this particular layer where the pores are narrows, here since the pores are small, okay, so the Knudsen diffusion will be prevalent. Again, when we are going down to the next particular layer, okay, in which the pores are wide pores. So, here more or less you can say these are microfiltration range. So, here the transport will occur through the viscous flow. Okay. So, the pore is not at all imparting any resistance to the flow. And then there are another thing that also happens, which is called surface diffusion. Now, surface diffusion along the pore wall. Okay. So, let us say this is a particular pore wall. Okay, when the permeates are passing like this. Okay. So, it will happen that they are getting attached to the surface. Okay. Then they will slowly diffuse certain later on also, they may diffuse here this side also, depending upon what is the structure here. Okay. So, the surface diffusion cannot be ruled out. So, that is also takes place, that is also important when you describe the transport through a asymmetric membrane. So, top layer, which is if it is a non-porous layer, then it is bulk diffusion, then followed by the second layer, which is having a narrow pores, which is Knudsen diffusion, and then the wide pores, which is actually microfiltration range, that will be viscous pore. However, the rate determining step is mostly transport through the dense non-porous top layer. So, here actual separation is happening due to the top layer, which is non-porous layer. Okay. However, it is also possible that other mechanisms contribute to transport, that is the resistance of the sublayer may also contribute to the transport. Now, we will see how it actually happens. So, in addition, generally ultrafiltration types membranes are also employed as sublayer. Okay, in some certain cases. So, these are specific cases. So, this implies that effective thickness is much larger, okay, than the actual top layer thickness. So, you can see this, there is a top layer here, which is not properly being shown here. So, this is your the top, this is the top layer, okay, right. So, then there is a sub layer here, right. So, you can see this, what is essentially is being told that the effective thickness, okay. So, should also take into account the thickness of this top layer, right, the thickness of this particular layer also, because how a permeant, let us say A is a permeant here, it is diffusing, once it is diffused to the top layer, then when it comes to the sub layer, it is a distinct layer. This you need to understand that the layers are quite distinct. Okay. So, there how what resistance is being offered to its transport or to its permeance through this particular layer, okay, that will be decided by what is the thickness of the sub layer. So, the actual top layer thickness is L naught, but when a molecule penetrates the film at a point A, let us say this is a point A, okay, when the molecule is getting permeant, okay, the thickness is much larger as shown in the figure. So, your total thickness becomes something like this, this is a top layer, okay, so total thickness becomes something like this. Okay. Now, it is obvious that the effective thickness is strongly dependent on the surface porosity of the sublayer. Now, the average diffusion length can be calculated by this equation, L effective equals to this epsilon L naught. L naught is the top layer thickness plus 1 minus epsilon La L naught by 2. Now, this equation shows clearly that the determination of the value P by L, which is providing the resistance actually, is often to characterize the resistance of the sublayer, is not sufficient, and that are required to determine the pore size distribution. Now, Knudsen flow. Now, the occurrence of Knudsen flow or viscous flow is mainly determined by the pore size. Let us say for the pores which are of which are larger, greater than 10 micron, viscous flow occurs in which gas molecules collide exclusively with each other. In fact, they seem to ignore the existence of the membrane. No separation is obtained between the viscous gaseous components. The flow is proportional to the radius to the power of 4. So, r to the power of 4, r is the pore radius. However, if the pores are smaller and or when the pressure of the gas is reduced, the mean free path of the diffusing molecules become comparable or larger than the pore size of the membrane. Now, let us see the figure actually. So, the collisions between the molecules are now less frequent than the collisions of the pore walls, that is what happened. So, in case the pore size, this is the pore size, okay, you can see the pore size, this is bigger, then what is happening, the Poiseuille flow is happens, right. Now, here the pore wall is not contributing to anything. Now, when the pore wall will come into picture, when the pore size decreases, you see this pore size decreases, okay, it is a smaller this one, pore size. So, here the pore wall will have a effect. So, how? Through the mean free path. Now, what is mean free path? Now, mean free path may be defined as the average distance traversed by molecule between two successive collisions. This molecule is getting coming here, then it is coming here, again it is coming here, again it is coming, then finally it is coming out. So, okay, so we can see the mean free path is something like this, right. So, this is the mean free path. So, mean free path is the distance that is traversed by a particular molecule between two successive collisions. Okay. So, this is what is mean free path. The molecules are very close to each other in a liquid and the mean free path is of the order of few angstroms. So, in the liquid actually the mean free path has no practical relevance. So, so that is why in liquids Knudsen diffusion is usually neglected. However, in case of gas molecules the mean free path plays a big role, okay, because it depends on the pressure and temperature. So, for gases we can calculate the mean free path from this particular equation. So, lambda equals to, lambda is the mean free path. So, lambda equals to kT by pi d gas square P under root 2, okay, where d gas is the diameter of the molecule. Now, as you can see this, as the pressure decreases, okay, the mean free path increases. Whenever the pressure will decrease, the mean free path will increase. Okay. At constant pressure, the mean free path is proportional to the temperature. Now, for an example, let us say at 25 degree centigrade, what is happening? The mean free path of oxygen is 70 angstrom at 10 bar. Okay, and what is happening when we are reducing the pressure? We are reducing the pressure to 10 millibar. Okay, the mean free path increases, right, from 70 angstrom to 70 micron. So, in ultrafiltration membranes, the pore diameter is within the range 20 nanometer to 0.2 micron, and hence Knudsen diffusion can have a significant effect. Now, at low pressure, transport is determined completely by Knudsen flow. In this regime, the flux is given by this equation, J equals to pi nr square dk delta p by RT tau L. So, here dk is the Knudsen diffusion coefficient, it is given by this particular equation 0.66 r 8 r RT divided by pi mw under root. So, what is mw? Mw is the molecular weight of the component, okay, and T is the temperature, and R is the pore radius. Now, the above equation is showing clearly that the flux depends on the square root of the molecular weight. That means the separation between the molecules is inversely proportional to the ratio of the square or root of the molecular weight of the gases. So, another approach to describe the transport through membrane is a friction model. Now, what is happening and why this model has come into picture? That because when the pore sizes are small, then the solid molecules cannot pass freely through the pores. And what is happening? Now, the friction is occurring. Friction is occurring between what? Friction is occurring between the solute and the pore wall, between the solvent and the pore wall, as well as the solvent and the solute. So, three types of frictions are happening between solute pore wall, solvent pore wall, and solute and solvent, right. Now, the friction force F per mole is related linearly to the velocity difference or relative velocity. The proportionality factor is called the friction coefficient small f. So, capital F is the friction force, small f is the friction coefficient. Now, friction model takes into account the passage through the porous membrane, which is occurring both by viscous flow as well as diffusion. Now, on considering permeation of the solvent and solute through a membrane and taking the membrane as a frame of reference, the following frictional forces can be distinguished. Now, in the next slide I am showing the equations. So, the subscript S, W and M refer to the solute, water and membrane respectively. Now, FSM, that is the frictional force for solute and membrane, between solute and membrane, equals to minus FSM, that is the friction coefficient between solute and membrane, Vs minus Vm equals to minus FSM Vs. So, here also we have written the equation for FWM. So, the frictional force between water and membrane can be expressed is that minus FWM Vw. Okay, FSW is another one, which is the frictional force interaction between the solute and the water. okay. And then Ws is we can write that here Fws equals to the friction force between the water and solute is minus Fws Vw minus Vs. Now, the proportionality factor Fsm, which is the friction coefficient, denotes the interaction between the solute and the polymer. Okay. That is actually M denotes the membrane. So, membrane means the polymer, or essentially we can say also pore wall. Now, using linear relationship between fluxes and forces in accordance with the concept of irreversible thermodynamics and assuming isothermal conditions, okay, the forces can be described as gradient of chemical potential. So, x I equals to minus d mu I dx. So, we know this, we have discussed this many times. However, other external forces are acting on the component, and what are those forces? Those are called frictional forces. So, we cannot neglect them. So, hence then it needs to be included. So, the equation, earlier equation, which is x I equals to minus d mu I by dx, this between the flux and the forces. So, we can rewrite by adding the component F I, okay, the frictional force. Now, the diffusive solute flux can be written as the product of mobility, concentration and driving force. Now, what is mobility? Mobility can be expressed as d by RT, and the solute flux then becomes Js equals to mws Csm minus d mu s by dx plus Fsm. Now, what is Csm here? Now, Csm is the concentration of the solute in the membrane, or we can essentially say also pore also. Now, the above equation describes the solute flux as a combination of diffusion and viscous flow. So, the first term on the right hand side you can see. So, this is diffusive flow and that is viscous flows. Okay. Assuming an ideal solution, we can write this equation del mu s by del x at constant pressure and temperature equals to del mu s by d Csm into del Csm by del x. Okay. So, further more for dilute ideal solutions, we can write this particular equation in terms of del mu s by del x equals to RT by Csm, right. So, the frictional force for solute per mole of solute is given by Fsm, is the frictional force between the solute and the membrane equals to minus Fsm. This is the frictional coefficient, friction coefficient into Vs, okay, equals to minus Fsm Js by Csm. Relating the mobility of the solute in water to the frictional coefficient between solute and water, then MSW equals to 1 over FSW, and we define a parameter B that that relating the frictional coefficient, that is Fsm, between the solute and the membrane to FSW between the solute and water. Okay. So, we can write that B equals to, we are defining a new parameter basically. So, we are defining a new parameter in such a way that the friction coefficient between the solute and water as well as the solute and membrane has been taken into account. So, B equals to FSW plus Fsm divided by FSW. So, we can write that 1 plus Fsm by FSW. So, on combining the last 6 equations which we have discussed, we can write the solute flux equals to in this manner. So, Js equals to minus RT FSWB, then d Csm by dx plus Csm Vs by B, where B is this particular equation. So, the coefficient for distribution of solute between the bulk and the pore membrane is given by K equals to Csm by C, while the frictional coefficient Fsw between the solute and water may be written as dSw equals to RT by Fsw. Okay. So, dSw is the diffusion between the solute and the this one water, and equals to RT by Fsw, where dSw is the diffusion coefficient for solute in dilute solution. Then if we can write Jv equals to epsilon V Ji and equals to flux, Js is the solute flux into epsilon, okay, because V and Ji can be written as Js. Then this is zeta equals to tau into x, then solute flux becomes this. Okay. So, we are writing in terms of Ji, so minus K dSw B tau dC by dx plus Kc Jv by B. Now, since we can express Cp equals to Js by Vs, so we can integrate the previous equation with the boundary conditions x equals to 0 when C1Sm equals to K into Cf, x equal to 1, that indicates C2Sm equals to K into Cp. Right. Now, what is Cf and Cp? Now, Cf and Cp are solute concentrations in the feed and permeate side respectively. Now, once you do that integration, you will get this equation Cf by Cp equals to B by K plus 1 minus B by K exponential minus tau L Jv by epsilon dSw. Now, if you plot Cf by Cp this, okay, Cf by Cp versus permeate flux, okay, Jv, right, as expressed by the exponential factor. So, we will see how actually it happens. So, you can see this plot actually Cf by Cp versus this particular permeate flux, in which tau, L, epsilon, dSw, these are all constant being integrated into that equation, right. The figure demonstrates that the ratio Cf by Cp increases to attain an asymptotic value at B by K here. Okay. So, that means it is getting saturated here. Okay. So, what is the meaning of that? So, when B is large, K is actually small. So, the friction factor B is large when the friction between the solute and the membrane is greater than the friction between the solute and the solvent. The parameter K is small when the uptake of the solute by the membrane from the feed is small compared to the solvent water uptake. When the solute distribution coefficient is actually small. Now, an important point is that both distribution coefficient and equilibrium thermodynamic parameter and the frictional forces, which is the kinetic parameters, determine the selective. So, students, you just note it down. It is very important to remember then the selectivity of the membrane is governed by two important parameters. The first one is the distribution coefficient, which is actually the equilibrium thermodynamic parameter, and the second one is the frictional forces, which is arising due to the kinetic parameters. So, both these parameters determine the selectivity. Now, solute rejection can be expressed in terms of Cf minus Cp by Cf or y minus Cp by Cf, the concentration of permeate and concentration by feed. We have seen that from earlier equation, the Cf Cp, we can see that the maximum rejection is happening Rmax when the Jv, the volumetric flow, stands to infinity. So, you can write this equation Rmax equals to this sigma 1 minus K by B 1 minus this equation. This is inverse. Okay. Now, this equation shows how rejection is related to a kinetic term, that is the friction factor B, and to a thermodynamic equilibrium term, that is the parameter K. Spiegler and Kadam derived the following equation. So, here you can see two distinct terms. So, one, this is this Ks by Kw. So, this is called actually exclusion term. Okay. This is the thermodynamic equilibrium term, also known as exclusion term, and this term is the another term. Okay. For a highly selective membrane, this term must be small as possible. Now, what is the inherent meaning of that? Now, the solubility of the solute in the membrane should be as much as low possible. So, that is why this tells us, okay, Ks by Kw, right. Now, this can be, how we will achieve this? Now, this can be achieved by selection of a proper polymer. That is why I told you in maybe our second or third class when we were discussing the polymers and the membrane materials, that time we have discussed that, and what is the importance to study the properties of the membrane material. Okay. Let us say the polymeric materials. We have studied different polymers materials, na? Polyethylene, polypropylene, polytetrafluoroethylene, PVDF, nylon, so many different polystyrene, ethers, sulfone. Okay. So, why we have discussed this? Because if you remember or recall, that time I was telling that the properties of the membrane material plays a very big role in most of the membrane separation. If it is microfiltration membrane, okay, and the pores are usually of very big size. So, in that the membrane material is not playing a big role, but when you go to ultrafiltration, reverse osmosis, nano filtration, non-porous membranes, then slowly the membrane material, the pore size decreases and the membrane material starts playing an important role. So, once the membrane material takes part takes an important role in the separation, it is very important to understand what is the properties of that particular membrane, because depending on that we can fine tune and choose a particular membrane material to make a membrane which will suit our particular application. So, in addition to the kinetics, friction coefficients and also affects the selectivity. This we have also discussed in today's class also. So, thus in this concept, selectivity is considered in terms of a solution diffusion mechanism, with the exclusion term being equivalent to the solution part and the kinetic term to the diffusion part, right. So, here, okay, this particular term is called the exclusion part, and this is actually the other term, which is the kinetic part or the diffusion part. Okay. So, another relation between rejection and flux has been derived by Pusch. Now, this, if the permeate concentration is given by Cp equals to Js by Jv, then rejection R can be written as 1 minus Cp by Cf or Js by Cf Jv. Okay. So, expressing rejection in terms of two different fluxes, solute flux as well as volume flux. Now, substituting the solute flux in this equation, this we have discussed earlier. Okay. So, we get R in terms of omega delta pi and Jv and Cf. Okay. So, here also or we can just modify this equation, and this is just not modification, this is just written, okay, or rearranging the parameters in terms of this reflection coefficient. So, substituting Jv equals to Lp into delta p, that rejection equation becomes something like this. Okay. Now, here L22 L11 comes into picture, the reflection the coupling coefficients as well as the reflection coefficient. Now, from this above equation limiting conditions can be derived. How? Now, the maximum rejection, that is R infinity, is obtained when your volumetric flux tends to infinity. So, Jv tends to infinity. So, here R infinity or maximum rejection equals to 1 minus this sigma C infinity by Cf. Now, here C infinity is the average solute concentration at Jv equals to infinity, assuming that C infinity is Cf and then R infinity equals to this reflection coefficient. Furthermore, if you can express R rejection in terms of osmotic pressure delta pi by delta F, and substituting R infinity into the above equation, we get 1 by R equals to 1 by R plus R infinity minus this particular equation. Now, here from this equation we can see that the reciprocal of the rejection coefficient R is plotted versus the reciprocal of the solvent flux Jv, a straight line is obtained. Okay, with the reciprocal of the maximum rejection R naught as the abscissa, and this is the slope. Okay. So, let us now discuss the transport through the non-porous membrane. Now, when the sizes of molecules are in the same order of magnitude as with oxygen and nitrogen or heptane, hexane or heptane, porous membranes cannot effect a separation. Now, in this case non-porous membranes must be used. However, the term non-porous is rather ambiguous because pores are present on a molecular level in order to allow transport even in such membranes. Now, the existence of these dynamic molecular pores can be adequately described in terms of free volume. Initially, transport through these dense membranes will be considered via somehow simple approach. Thus, although there are some similarities between gaseous and liquid transport, there are also a number of differences. So, in general, the affinity of liquids and polymers is much greater than between the gases and polymers. What is the meaning of that? The meaning of that, the solubility of liquid in a polymer is much higher than that of a gas. So, sometimes the solubility can be so high that cross linking is necessary to prevent polymer dissolution. In addition, a high solubility also has a tremendous influence on the diffusivity, making the polymer chains more flexible and resulting in an increased permeability. Basically, the transport of a gas, vapor or liquid through a dense non-porous membrane can be described in terms of solution diffusion mechanism. So, here we define permeability equals to solubility and diffusivity. So, solubility is a thermodynamic parameter and it gives a measure of the amount of penetrant sorbed by the membrane under equilibrium conditions. In contrast, the diffusivity is a kinetic parameter. Okay. So, diffusivity is a kinetic parameter, whereas solubility is a thermodynamic parameter, and diffusivity is a kinetic parameter which indicates that how fast a permeant is transported through the membrane. So, it depends on its diffusion or diffusivity. So, diffusion constant or diffusivity. So, diffusivity is dependent on the geometry of the penetrant, for as the molecular size increases, the diffusion coefficient also decreases. However, diffusion coefficient is a concentration dependent with interacting systems, and even large organic molecules, especially the organic molecules having the ability to swell the polymer, can have large diffusion coefficient. So, the problem is again in the systems of polymeric membrane is that if you are employing organic molecules, organic solvents, okay, then organic solvents will tend to swell the membrane material, okay, and what will happen? The pore sizes will increase, right. So, when the separation is happening, this will also happen depending upon what is the residence time. Okay. So, in that case large diffusion coefficients will come into picture. the solubility of gases in polymers is very low, usually 0.2% by volume, and it is assumed that gas diffusion coefficient is constant. Now, such cases can be considered as ideal system where fixed law is obeyed. On the other hand, solubility of organic liquids and vapors can be relatively high depending upon the specific interaction, and the diffusion coefficient is now assumed to be concentration dependent, that is diffusivity is increased with increasing concentration. Two separate cases must therefore be considered: ideal systems where both the diffusivity and the solubility are constant, and concentration dependent system where the solubility and diffusivity are functions of the concentration. So, we will discuss these two things. So, permeability is both a function of solubility and diffusivity. The simplest way is to describe the transport of gases is using the Fick's law, J equals to minus d dc by dx. The flux J of a component through a plane perpendicular to the direction of diffusion being proportional to the concentration gradient dc by dx. The proportionality constant is called the diffusion coefficient. This. So, diffusion may be considered as statistical molecular transport as a result of random motion of the molecules. So, this is how actually, if you can see in this figure, transport is occurring from this direction to this direction, and the random motions of the molecules is happening in both sides, upstream side and downstream side of the membrane. So, how do we determine the diffusion coefficient? Now, the diffusion coefficient is constant for ideal systems as discussed here, and can be determined by a permeation method, which is also called as the time lag method. Now, if the membrane is free of a penetrant at the start of the experiment, the amount of penetrant passing through the membrane in the time t can be calculated. So, this is the equation. Here C is the concentration on the feed side and N is an integer, right. A curved plot can also be observed initially in the transient state, but this becomes linear with time as steady state conditions are attained. So, when t tends to infinity, the exponential term of the above equation, okay, this can be neglected and it simplifies this. So, the q t, okay. So, that means what is this? So, the amount of penetrant that is passing through the membrane at time t is dci by L t minus L square by 6t, right. So, if the linear plot of qt versus qt by LCI versus t is extrapolated to the time axis, the resulting intercept theta is called the time lag. So, theta equals to L square by 6d. So, you can see this from this particular figure, it is actually extrapolated. So, you can see this is actually the transient state from here to here, and then the steady state begins from here onwards. Instead of measuring a flow, the increment of the permeate pressure can be monitored as well. Okay. In this way, the time lag can be obtained from a P2 versus time plot. The time lag method is very suitable for studying ideal systems with a constant diffusion coefficient. The permeability coefficient P can be obtained from the steady state part of this permeation coefficient, which means that both diffusion coefficient and permeability coefficient can be determined from one experiment. So, this is the most important understanding, that we can calculate both the diffusion coefficient as permeability coefficient from one particular equation, provided we know either D or S. So, more complex relationship for the time lag must be used in concentration dependent system. And now we will understand how do we calculate or determine the solubility coefficient. Now, once the diffusion coefficient and the permeability coefficient have been determined, the solubility coefficient is also can be calculated from the ratio P by D. Now, various techniques can be employed to determine the solubility coefficient directly or experimentally. A polymer sample has been applied in a closed constant volume here, just like you can see this. Okay. It is a constant volume system or reactor in which the polymer sample is applied. The volume has been evacuated for a certain period to remove interfering molecules, and then the gas is applied at a certain pressure. So, due to the sorption of the gas in the polymer, the pressure decreases in time until the equilibrium has been reached. Okay. Since the gas will start to, so what is happening initially is that, so there is this reactor, you can understand there is a chamber in which the polymer sample is kept, and then it is basically evacuated. Okay. Once it is done, then we pass a particular gas, so and this gas will start to dissolve on the adsorb on the surface of the polymer sample. Now, the pressure will start decreasing there, that is why the pressure will start decreasing until equilibrium has been reached. So, that means there will be no more sorption of the gas on the polymer surface, and the amount of penetrant inside polymer can now be calculated very easily, because we know how much gas we have, the volume of gas is that is being supplied inside the chamber is being known to us. So, from the sorption experiment, an effective diffusion coefficient can be determined as well as. So, by plotting the ratio of mass uptake at time t over the mass uptake at infinite time versus the square root of the time, the diffusion coefficient can be obtained. So, we can get diffusion coefficient from this equation, d equals to 0.049 t half by L square. The solution diffusion model applies to reverse osmosis, pervaporation, gas permeation in polymer films or polymer membranes. At first glance, these processes appears to be very different. Reverse osmosis, why? Because reverse osmosis uses large pressure difference across the membrane and to separate water from salt solutions. In pervaporation, usually the membrane separates a liquid feed solution from a permeant vapor. The pressure difference across the membrane is small, and the process is driven by the vapor pressure difference between the feed liquid and the low partial pressure of the permeant vapor. So, the gas permeation involves transport of gases down a pressure or concentration gradient. All three processes involve diffusion of molecules in a dense polymeric membrane. The pressure, temperature and composition of the fluids on either side of the membrane determine the concentration of the diffusing species at the membrane surface in equilibrium with the feed. Now, once dissolved in the membrane, individual permeating molecules move by the same process of random molecular diffusion, no matter whether the membrane is being used in the reverse osmosis, pervaporation or gas permeation. Okay. So, this is how actually a dense solution diffusion membrane separate because of differences in the solubility and the mobility of the permeates dissolved in the membrane material. Reverse osmosis, pervaporation and polymeric gas separation membranes contain a dense selective polymer layer with no visible pores, that is on the top layer. These membranes show different transport rates for molecules as small as 2 to 5 angstrom in diameter. The fluxes of permeate through these membranes are also much lower than through the microporous membrane. Now, transport in these membranes is best described by the solution diffusion model. The spaces between polymer chains in these membranes are less than 5 to 10 angstrom in diameter, and so are within the normal range of the thermal motion of the polymer chain that makes up the membrane matrix. Actually, very small molecules, small size of the molecules can permeate through this non-porous membranes. The molecules permeate the membrane through free volume elements between polymer chains that are transient on time scale of the diffusion process that is occurring. And membranes in the third group contain pores with a diameter between 5 to 15 angstrom and an intermediate between truly microporous and truly solution diffusion membranes, right. So, these are some transition range membranes, you can say that. For example, the classic example is the NF membranes, right, nanofiltration membranes. So, they are intermediate between the UF membranes, which are clearly microporous, and a reverse osmosis membrane, which is clearly dense membrane. So, NIP is something between a porous membrane and a non-porous membrane. So, nanofiltration membranes have high rejections for dry and trisaccharides, that for example, sucrose and raffinose with molecular diameter of 10 to 13 angstrom, but freely pass the monosaccharide fructose, okay, with a molecular diameter of 5 to 6. So, you can understand that the diameter of the molecule, the size, that plays an important role. Okay. Eventually, the membrane material or the top layer membrane material will determines the separation or the separation efficiency. Some gas separation membranes also falls in this intermediate category. Now, permeation through dense non-porous membranes includes permeation in reverse osmosis, pervaporation and gas separation. Now, the predictions of this model are in good agreement with experimental data, and a number of simple equations that usually rationalize the properties of these membranes result. So, you can write this equation in terms of activity coefficient. Okay. So, these are being shown the gradient actually chemical potential, pressure, the permeate activity. So, we can write P naught minus PL equals to delta pi, expressing in terms of the osmotic pressure difference across the membranes, also solvent activity difference, okay, the activity coefficient. A number of macroscopic models are discussed in an attempt to describe the large differences in the separation principles involved in various membrane processes and membranes, with the extremes being observed for porous membranes. and non-porous membranes. The model description can be classified as those based on a phenomenological approach and a non-equilibrium thermodynamics. So, those mechanistic models such as the pore model and the solution diffusion model will be taken into account. Now, the phenomenological models are we have discussed that they are black box types and they provide no information how the separation is actually occurring. So, that is why we have discussed many times different models of whether it is Hagen-Poiseuille equation, Kozny-Karman equation or expressing the fluxes in terms of frictional forces also, and even in expressing them in terms of your osmotic pressure difference also holds the key to understand what is the transport and how the transport is actually happening. Mechanistic models try to relate separation with structure related membrane parameters in an attempt to describe mixtures. Now, these latter models also provide information on how separation actually occurs and which factors are important. Now, in order to describe transport through a porous membrane or through a non-porous membrane, two contributions must be taken into account. So, the diffusional flow and the convective flow. Now, you can write that is why. So, flux equals to C I into V I plus U. Okay. So, product of the velocity and the concentration. The concentration of convective flow is the main term in any description of transport through porous membrane. In non-porous membranes, however, the convective flow term can be neglected and only diffusional flow, that is, contributes to the transport. It can be shown by simple calculations that only convective flow contributes to transport in case of porous membranes, especially in case of microfiltration where the pore sizes are bigger. Thus, for a membrane with a thickness of, this is an example, let us consider a membrane which is a thickness of 100 micron, an average pore diameter of 0.1 micron, a tortuosity tau of 1, and we are assuming capillary membrane, and a porosity of 0.6. Water flow at 1 bar pressure difference can be calculated from the Poiseuille equation. So, which is convective flow, we find 10 into 10 power of minus 3 meter per second. Now, the driving force for diffusion is the difference in chemical potential, and both the concentration or activity and the pressure contribute to this driving force. Now, however, it can be assumed that the concentration or activity on either side of the membrane is equal in microfiltration, and hence the pressure differences must be the only driving force. You can see this particular scheme where membrane as transport is shown in two different types of membrane, one is porous membrane and non-porous membrane. Okay. So, both convective and diffusive flow is happening. The diffusive water flow as a result of this driving force is very small and can be demonstrated as follows. So, you can calculate delta mu W equals to 1.8 joules per mole, and flux or water flux equals to 10 power of minus 8 meter per second. So, if you compare these values for a convective and diffusive contributions, that it indicates that diffusion can be neglected in these cases, because it is very less. The value is very small, so it can be neglected. In summary, it can be said that transport through porous membrane occur by convection and non-porous by diffusion. So, porous membrane usually convection happening and non-porous diffusion happening. Apparently, there is a transition zone which we discussed just few times before, or we also call it a intermediate zone in which both convection and diffusion play a role. So, a solution diffusion model can be used where each component dissolves into the membrane and diffuse through the membrane independently. So, the flux of a component through a membrane may be described in terms of the product of the concentration and the velocity. So, J I equals to C I V I. So, that is convective flow makes no contribution. So, the mean velocity can be calculated from this equation, V I equals to x I by f I. The driving force is given by the gradient d O I by d x. Okay. The frictional coefficient can be related to the thermodynamic diffusion coefficient if ideal conditions are assumed, and if the thermodynamic distribution diffusion coefficient is equal to the observed diffusion coefficient, the above equation can then be becomes J I equals to d I C I by R T del d mu I of dx. So, we have seen this particular equation in our last class, that we expressed the chemical potential in this particular form, and if you substitute this in earlier equation, we get J I is in something like this. Okay. At the feed interface, this you can see how the notations are given actually. This is feed phase, Okay, this is permeate phase and this is the membrane phase. Okay, so the membranes are denoted by small m, whereas in feed side as well as permeate side it is denoted by S. Okay. So, at the feed interface we can write chemical potential of species 1 inside the membrane, okay, is equal to that of the solute side or feed side or permeate side, any one. So, hence activity also can be written in the same manner, and at the permeate interference also we can write something like this. Okay. The activities at the feed interference can be written in terms of C 1 I gamma I equals to C 1 S gamma I 1 S, and similarly we can write the activities of the permeate interference as this, and if the solubility constant K I is defined as the ratio of the activity coefficient, we can write C I 1 m, okay, that is the concentration inside the membrane equals to K I 1 into C I 1 S, the concentration of the permeate or feed size. Okay. And furthermore, if it is assumed that the diffusion coefficient is concentration independent, fixed law can be integrated. So, we can write the flux equals to minus d I by L C I 2 m minus C I 1 m. So, here J I can be expressed in terms of the equation after substituting from the earlier equations, and if you write alpha equals to K I 2 by K I 1, that is the solubility coefficients are similar at both the interfaces, and P I equals to K I d I, then we can express the flux in this particular manner in terms of alpha and the pressure differences, that is the pressure at upstream side and the downstream side P 1 and P 2. So, above equation is the basic equation used to compare various membrane processes when the transportation occurs by diffusion. So, this is the phases involved in diffusion control membrane processes. Here you can see that there can be two different types of phases can be possible. In reverse osmosis it is liquid liquid, in dialysis it is liquid liquid, in gas separation it is gas and gas, in pervaporation it is liquid and gas. Okay. So, today's lecture is also mostly taken from the textbook Mulder. You can also refer Becker and other books for today's lecture. So, the next lecture under this particular module we will discuss the concept of osmosis, reverse osmosis, taking into account the thermodynamic analysis. So, thank you very much, and if you have any questions or queries, do feel free to write to me at kmohanty@iitg.ac.in. So, thank you.